Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Tattoo Talk with me, Bryan Briggs. It's December 15th, 2019, and the going theme lately has kind of been about private studios and how I can help you kind of like get in a mindset that's going to help you skip slow season. The way that I go about doing that. So a lot of what I talk about is going to be hard for someone to apply, like if they don't work for themselves. But that's like the future of the tattoo industry right now, I think, because a lot of the guys that I talk to from wherever, like mostly big cities and stuff, they're like moving towards having more and more private studios in these kind of places, and those are kind of like the leaders of the industry usually in any industry is like in more metropolitan areas. So when you talk to a lot of those guys, a lot of the older kind of style shops of the past where it benefits the owner the most and the artist the least and the client even less than the artist, those are kind of like going away now. So people are recognizing tattoo industry as like a real industry now. So real business industry tactics are being applied to the tattoo world. So if you're in an old school shop, you're in competition with new school people that have business degrees and stuff like that, so marketing degrees, or if they don't, then they're smart enough to spend money to hire people that do. So if you're noticing you're in like even a old like historic shop or something like that and the business is just slow, it's because there's people that are a lot more advanced than you, like more advanced than you are at like getting their name out there in these new ways the technology allows, like so that's I kind of like went off path a little bit, but what I was trying to get at is that like if you're an artist that's working and you're cutting, say 50%, which a lot of guys start at, or a lot of guys are at, sometimes I feel like that can be made fair to the artist, but it's very rare. Excuse me. It's very rare that like a shop that takes 50% from their artist actually does anything to like deserve that 50%. So like if they're bringing you in like a ton of clients and they're charging a rate that you feel you're getting your fair shake from it, then that's maybe different, but a lot of shops will take 50% from you and the owner will use it at their bar tab or for their brand new boat rental or like whatever, like their mortgage or their child support. I've had all these kinds of things. These are actual things that I've gone through, so there's a lot of bad owners out there taking 50% from people and not really providing anything back, and I think that's kind of wrong. And it but it also, obviously it's wrong, but also like I think people like underestimate their own ability maybe to like be able to go out on their own and do it, like even if you're making half as much at first or pulling in half as much, you're still making as much as you were at a shop that was taking 50% from you. So sometimes it's just, well, more and more people I think are finding when I talk to them that it's worth it to just kind of like have your own space, and whether that means like renting a booth space from someone for like a flat rate, or starting your own private studio, which is easier to do than a lot of people think, especially in rural areas, kind of like where I'm at. Like it's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward. If you have a little bit of drive, they might make you jump through a few hoops. Like the biggest thing I had to do that was the biggest burden was probably the petition I had to get signed by 50% of all the landowners within 500 feet or of the shop area. So I had to go door to door knocking on people's doors and asking them for signatures to say that they were not against me opening a tattoo business here. But that's because the old school mentality of tattoo shops, like, they thought I was gonna come in here and have all these, like, bright shiny lights in the window blinking, and a bunch of motorcycles out front, and a bunch of people in and out of here all the time drinking and smoking and stuff like that. But it hasn't been like that at all. It's just a private studio, and it's kind of turning into like my personal like art gallery. It's really only one or two people in here at a time besides me, and now I have room for another artist too. But I've had that room for a while now, and I still haven't found just like the right person to fill that space, because I want to provide an opportunity for the right person, kind of, I guess. Because I'm trying to make this kind of shop, and it's not a unique style of shop necessarily. There's a lot of shops in the country like this, but what I want to do is kind of have multiple artists, and we all just highly specialize in one thing, kind of, or like when you see it, like you can tell like that guy did that. There's a lot of people like that, it's not like a crazy thing to think of. I didn't like come up with the idea, like I said, but there's a lot of shops moving towards this now, and I feel like more artists are feeling like that they need to become, like, I don't know, more like reliant on themselves, because you're not being offered enough to be giving half of your money to somebody anymore, really, especially with the internet, because like there was a time where 50% made sense, and for me, I think early on sometimes, like in an apprenticeship or something like that, it can make sense too, because there's also like a learning price, I guess, that you're paying the person above you or whatever. And I feel like when I was paying that much, like, it was because that's where my value was at too, that's the value I was providing. I was just doing whatever scraps kind of came in, like whatever little like tattoos or like names and stuff like that, whatever, like little dates and stuff like that. Whenever I was doing that kind of stuff, it was like a different kind of job almost. It wasn't even really like the same thing as it is now, because now it's really like art centered, and I'm able to like really create one of a kind things, and it's not necessarily like just waiting for somebody to come in and tell me what they want to get. It's also like they're leaving something in my hands for me to like be able to mess with and create something unique, and so they're like kind of like commissioning me and trusting me with like the art side. So it's like a lot different than how it used to be, where it's just like, I want this, and they're looking for like something right now as cheap as possible. That isn't tattooing to me anymore, and it used to just be like a lot of shops are kind of made to be like that, and then they fill the shop with as many artists as they can and take half their money from every tattoo they do, and then they go on vacation half the year. And that's cool for the owner, but it doesn't promote like the kind of lifestyle the artist like got into tattooing to be around, even, because I know like a lot of people that start tattooing get into it, and they don't just get into it like wanting to make a living off art. Like, they see the lifestyle that a lot of these tattoo artists live, and they want that too, so it's not fair for the owner to flaunt that kind of lifestyle, attracting people who have like artistic abilities or whatever, and then to turn and make a crazy killing off of these kids, unless the owner is turning around and investing all that money back into the shop and keeping their artists booked up, allowing them to specialize more in the things they're best at. Because if you're gonna have multiple artists, they're all gonna have things that they like doing more or they're best at. So why not just let them like ride into that niche as much as possible, and then their value is more, because if they're really good at something, it's worth more than somebody that's just decent at a lot of things. So I think you have to start thinking ahead, like to the future. The future is just gonna be a lot of specialists. It's not gonna be a bunch of shops where like how it's always been, kind of, where you walk in and you get anything from any guy does everything, kind of. Like, it's just going to be more and more specialists. You go into a shop and looking for the exact artist you want to get. People are way more knowledgeable than they used to be, so that's kind of changing a lot. People do a lot of research, and so you have to be able to be researched. You have to have a lot of content out there, or a lot of different ways for them to find you. That's gonna help. That's gonna help a lot for the future if you just start stacking things like that. So the thing about being a specialist too is, like, you make more money and you work less when you have your own style versus trying to just mimic things from the over and over from the past, or something that anybody could do, kind of. Like, you don't have to, like, a lot of people, their goal starting out is to make like $10,000 a month, and then they think that's what's going to make them happy. I've talked to a lot of people over the years, and that's kind of like the going consensus, $100,000 a year, or roughly like 10 grand a month or something. And like, if you're a specialist artist, it's really easy, not easy, but it's really likely for you to be able to make like $1,000 in a day. If you spend a whole day, whether you're charging $150 or $200 an hour or whatever, and you're tattooing somewhere like 4 to 8 hours. Some people charge less per hour and do more hours, or more and do less hours, or they charge more and do more hours. But everybody's a little bit different on that. But it's not like out of this world that you would make $1,000 on a day, whatever you decide the length of that day is. And say your goal was to make $100,000 a year or $10K a month. All you would have to do is work with roughly 100 people a year. That's really not that many people when you think about it that way. When you have 365 days, and you only have to work with 100 people, it's easier that way. Because I know that a lot of people have an issue whenever they switch over to specializing, with like saying, I'm sorry, I don't have time for the small stuff, or like, hey, that's just not quite my style. Especially if you don't have another artist in the shop to pick up that money and stuff. Like, that's how it's been for me. It's just me alone in a private studio, and so I have to say no to a lot of stuff. And it was really hard at first, but then when I realized, like, I only have to work with, if I want to make that much, which is more than I should be making as a person that doesn't have a high school diploma or really any skills besides tattooing. Like, other friends of mine have had to spend a lot of money on college educations to make similar money or whatever, right? So definitely feel like blessed to even like be able to shoot for that kind of money. It doesn't always work out that way, but it's good to have certain goals in mind, because you can't hit a target you're not aiming at. So eventually I will do where I'm only working with 100, like, that's like a good goal to have, I think, though, for somebody that's trying to specialize. It makes like a rounded off, like, simple number that you don't have to like stress, like, like, how many people do I have to talk to? Well, you have to talk to a lot of people to get those 100 people for 1,000 each, so that's the game, really. It's not about you're not going to book every person you talk to. You're going to talk to a lot of people that want stuff you're not going to be doing. But so that's the kind of the game, is getting like the large end of, it's like a big funnel, and at the large end of the funnel at the top you're going to have you know, like all the people that have everything all the requests, the stuff that you want to do, the stuff you don't want to do, doesn't really matter, you know, like everything, every request you get. And then at the bottom, you know, after siphoning through all these people for um, your standards and everything, you'll wind up with these few people, these 100 clients. And that's all you have to do. So it might take a few hundred, you know, like it depends on your advertising too, and stuff like that. Like if you're kind of like marketing towards the right people and saying the right things, you're talking directly to them, and all your ads are kind of like speaking to them, then you could be like basically doing something what I refer to as like grooming your client for like years. You know, it takes years sometimes to groom these clients, and clients are like not always gonna buy in the first time. There's like I don't know by heart like all the numbers of that, but there's like a percentage of people that will buy right away, and it's very very small compared to the people that see your posts and your work like 7 to 10 times. You know, those are the people that are more likely to buy. So if you're just putting $5 or $6 into a boosted Facebook post every once in a while, you're not going to reach enough people to be able to specialize or to be able to run your own private studio, you know, unless you have an extensive clientele you've built up from somewhere else already. But if you're like me and you moved across country and then did this, you have to kind of like push yourself on social media in a way that works, and it can take some grooming, is what I'm saying. Basically, like you have to stay in the attention sphere, and the longer you can do that, and the more times they can see you over and over again. I have people that are just now contacting me to get tattooed, and it's been, you know, 2 or 3 years of them seeing my stuff, seeing all the giveaways I do and the charity stuff or whatever, you know, when people mention you, or like all the tattoos you do is a big part of it, but the stories, they read them, you know, like um, they like that, because what people do all day really is like scrolling on Facebook, right? And so you kind of have to be one of those things like on the feed. Otherwise, they're really not gonna see you. They're not. You're just gonna become something that can be Googled only, really, and that's like the last place. Like, well, that's the first place a lot of people look, I guess, you know. But like, but these people that you're grooming, you're not gonna have a chance. You're gonna miss out on like a large chunk of people that you could be getting, is what I'm saying, by not having like consistency in that realm or whatever. So it's like really hard to choose something though, you know, and stick to it as far as style, because like your mind's gonna tell you you're missing out on that money by not doing that small like bullshit walk-in stuff. But a major part of getting more freedom and having hiring clients is having to say no to a lot of stuff. So you're wasting your time a lot of times doing a lot of the cheap little stuff, because in your heart, you know, you're trying to be doing this big stylized pieces, and you just don't get those kind of clients like walking in the door every day. You know, you're not going to find those kind of people through walk-ins. Maybe word of mouth, but they're not just walking into places. Those kind of clients, they do a lot of research and they take a lot of time making their choice, and you have to play the long game with those clients to get that kind of like artist lifestyle that you're desiring, the kind of lifestyle that a lot of shop owners like act like they have, but they're really riding off of the artists. So like I think it's time a lot more artists just start like branching off on their own and doing it the way I'm doing it, just having their own. There could be an unlimited amount of private studios and people, it just depends. You're not going to be able to do that with generic work, is all I'm saying. Like you have to have something that is special, that people are willing to travel for too, because you're not just going to be able to depend on local clientele either. So this is just my experience, you know. I'm just sharing, like, this is real life shit, what I've been through and what helped me. The biggest thing with all of this is just like if you're gonna do this and be on your own like me and do the way I've been doing it, you really have to get a lot of people to show interest, and you have to get those people through the door and to do consultations in person. That's like, there's multiple levels to your like filtration system here, and like that's the first one for me is like, everyone who messages me has to go through an in-person consultation, because I'm not gonna sit and waste a lot of time anymore. I used to sit and waste a lot of time trying to quote prices online and stuff, and that's like a huge mistake that a lot of tattoo artists make. And yeah, and it even can end up in bad reviews and bad experience without even somebody getting a tattoo, and they might take you the wrong way. Miscommunications happen. This is like the worst first step you can do, like the first impression or whatever. So like you come off really a lot more professional anyways if you require an in-person consultation. The only exception I really make is if someone lives like pretty far away. If you're gonna have to drive out, I've had clients drive up to like 10 hours as my furthest client that's driven out, and of course I'm not gonna make them drive out for an in-person consultation necessarily. But sometimes, you know, you really need to see it in person, and especially for me, I'm a cover-up specialist, so a lot of the stuff I do is really got to be begin with like a in-person kind of deal. But it also is just a first filtration step, and it kind of keeps the people that aren't serious enough, that really don't have money, they're just kind of like kicking tires and checking prices and stuff, and they won't really make it through the door. Those are those kind of people. So one other like tip too, like I was just kind of like talking about and like hearing about in one of the groups that I'm in. If you're not in it, you should join it. It's called Tattoo Shop Talk, and I actually have like a lot of good stuff in there. Sometimes kind of whatever, like artist ego and stuff like that, but that's gonna happen anywhere. But if you're like looking for, you know, like real like a diverse group of people to ask questions to, or to just listen to about information. You know, a lot of people have different tips and stuff, so you don't want to listen to it all, but it's good to read it all and to see it all. But one thing that we were all talking about on there recently was how like a lot of people will message you stupid shit, you know, like that you think is stupid, but it's because you've been tattooing for however long you've been tattooing, and you can't really like expect people to just know what you know, like there a lot of people out there are just ignorant to this. They don't really understand the tattoo world. They think that, you know, maybe it's a hobby even or something like that, and you're a professional, you know. And so some people will unintentionally be kind of like disrespectful even sometimes, but if you can approach them back in the right way, you can greet them and get them to meet you in person, you know, and make a good impression, but still like kind of like be like someone that's like informal, you know, and like professional. Like it's different than being like, you don't have to be a dick, you know, like you can be like just knowledgeable and like a friend that's like, hey, I know you might not know this, but this is how I do it. It's a lot different that way, you know. So yeah, so that's my tip. Answer all the messages, even the stupid shit, and be nice and explain how you do stuff, and watch like 30% of the people that you thought were really stupid and you just like weren't even going to reply to end up being like really ideal clients, because they didn't have like a predetermined idea of how things worked, and so they just happily followed your advice and your direction. They just got off on the wrong foot, you know. So don't like assume a book by its cover, or whatever they say, you know. Like don't rush to judgment just because of the way they approach you the first time. They might just be like socially awkward or old, you know. Like I get a lot of clients that are getting their first tattoo in their 60s or 50, whatever, you know. I'm not saying that's super old, but that's old enough to where, you know, a lot of people have gotten, you know, like a tattoo by then. So something held them back, you know. So a lot of times it's just like some kind of like old wives' tale, or like just like taboo or ignorance, you know. So when they approach you weird, just assume that they don't know anything about tattoos and it's their first time ever dealing with a tattoo artist, and that's gonna help you a lot, I think, in getting those little niche groups of people. Like those, that's who I try to focus on more than anybody, is like the lost and forgotten clients. Like everybody waits for these people to walk in, or just Google tattoo shops in my local area and find you. But in reality, you should be focusing on these people that nobody focuses on. Like that's why I started really like looking at cover-ups more and getting better at them, and then other people really started liking them. That made me like want to do them even more because they were in demand, you know. And you're working with people that are lost kind of in the tattoo community. Like they're clients that are like forgotten about, so it's easier to pick those people up than it is to try to take someone from someone else or anything, you know. These are all people that need help too, and they just need a better direction and stuff. So it depends on how you look at everything, you know. Like you don't have to be like a nihilist about stuff and just be like, oh, it's just slow season, you know. It's like it's a whole thing year round that you have to keep up on in order to be able to really survive these kinds of times of year or whatever. And different parts of the country have like different parts of the year that are slow, but Christmas seems to be pretty universal. So you can really solve that. Like I was talking about that earlier in a different episode, that you could really solve it by like kind of like thinking in advance a little bit, and advertising and doing all your kind of like giveaways around like September or a little bit before then, and then gaining that like that front level of the like really bulking up that front level of interest, like those the filter, the top level of the filter, you know, like filling it up, you know, with all these people that have interest in whatever it is, whatever kind of tattoos, you know. The more people you have asking questions and requesting consultations, the more you can book consultations, the more you can book and make money off in tattoo. And then the key after that is focusing on return clientele. But sorry, I get a little bit lost sometimes in my notes and in my talk, and that's really one of my like big problems even sometimes too, talking to clients, is that I'm like a over explainer or a babbler, like an art babble is what we call it too. Like I go into way too descriptive, or like I can't think of the right words sometimes because like I'm not really educated in like as far as like a degree or whatever, so I don't have always like the right vocabulary to explain things that I want to explain. But I'll try to over explain shit to people, and yeah, that could be a big downfall for a lot of us, I think. A lot of us are like that, kind of ADD and stuff too, and like your mind kind of like darts back and forth between things. So just be aware of it. Being aware of it kind of like helps you, I think, overcome those kind of things. Yeah, I kind of briefly mentioned something about giveaways and stuff like that. I do a lot of that. Every year I do a few of them, at least one or two big ones too, like $1,000, an all-day session, something like that, you know. I do a lot of stuff like that you might consider like a publicity stunt or something, you know, like anything you can get to get your newspaper to like cover you or something like that is really, really good. Because if you could get, say, like on like an online newspaper article, then when someone's researching you, like one of those clients that wants that style that you do is researching for somebody with that style, and they keep seeing stuff, and then they see a news article with your name on it. Like these are all things that are gonna like increase your reputation, you know. So you got to really learn to use the search engine to your advantage, and like do whatever you can kind of to like make what you want pop up in the Google search engine. That's like really important, you know, like when people are searching tattoos in your area, or when people like all the keywords, you want them all to pop your shop up and like first, you know. A big part of that is getting really good reviews, obviously, you know. You really gotta learn to use Google and Facebook and Instagram to your advantage, though. Paying for ads and making a YouTube even is a really smart thing to do if you have like any kind of knowledge about doing videos, or if you don't, then do what I did, because like a lot of my videos are made by another guy that's like really good at doing that kind of stuff, you know. Like you have to hire out sometimes, and don't be afraid to go find somebody else to make something for you if you're not able to make it yourself. And then if you do have like some kind of YouTube and you're in like a smaller area and stuff, it's really good. Even if you don't have like a lot of content, like my suggestion to people is always to start a small YouTube page that contains videos like, say, does a tattoo hurt? Or how to think of a good tattoo idea, or tattoo aftercare, the best, you know, how to heal your tattoo in 3 weeks or whatever. You know, just if you can make a bunch of videos like that, put them onto a YouTube account, and then make another video that's more like a 30-second ad that just kind of, it shows a little bit of work. It shows you and your personality a little bit, maybe in the pictures, you know, and then some kind of voiceover on it that just gives like a real quick and like a inviting, really like a message, you know, like a message that explains like what your business is all about. Like mine is talking about, like, my ad that plays on YouTube says, it's like written out, you know. I wrote it out and like recorded it a bunch of different times so that it would sound like nicer or whatever. And basically it's kind of talking about how, just the way I feel about tattoos too, you know, just how like it's not just a tattoo, it's like a part of your story, and that it's important that you get someone that feels that way about like the ink too. It's that it's not just a tattoo, you know, like it's much more to that. There's an experience, there's the art is really like attached to emotion, you know. Like anytime you can attach your art to emotion, people are gonna be more obliged to like choose you, you know, because you understand like that there's a deeper reason, you know, and they want someone that understands and puts extra effort into what they're doing because of the backstory too, you know. Like they don't want someone anymore that just is like the generic artist. Like that's the thing of the past, I guess. That's what this episode is about. Sometimes I don't know exactly what they're gonna be about. I have some notes, but there's like a lot that just comes out kind of. So really like a big tip for me is that you really have to try to do whatever you can to establish yourself as the local expert. People will see you as what you see yourself as too. Is a big thing that I've learned, and a lot of times is, you know, tattoo artists are similar in the ways that we grew up, or like our past and stuff. So a lot of people are kind of like self-conscious or suffer from, you know, like that kind of like thing. So it's really hard to kind of establish yourself sometimes as a local expert in your own mind, you know. So needless to say, it could be hard to do that to others too. So some things you can do are like obvious stuff, like if you've won awards, you know, or if you have sponsorships, or there's articles written about you, but also like it doesn't have to be something that you won or something that's an accolade necessarily. It could just be educational seminars you took, you know, like pictures of you with these people, and just kind of like documentation of your life, like not even accomplishments, like things that you won over other people, but things that you just did that are monumental to you, you know, like even practice stuff that you've done, like you'd be surprised what people are really um, like amazed by, you know, and you might think it's not that great, but you just have to share everything, all the process of everything you do, like the art you do, the drawings you make, you know, just always be making videos and content out of that kind of stuff too. Like it's so easy to forget. Like people will forget to even take pictures of their tattoos and stuff, and that's crazy. You know, like you really gotta be consistent with that. Keep putting it out there, and there's nothing to be ashamed of showing your work. So I don't really see why there's a problem with that. You know, the less you put it out there, the less people see it. That's all. It doesn't hurt anybody except for you by not putting it out there. Um, so yeah, the idea is to get people talking about tattoos and you know, making it about more than art or more than just the ink too. You know, touch emotion somehow. Tell the stories behind your tattoos more in the posts, and people see you kind of like a local medicine man more than anything. You know, you're connecting them to their spiritual side, and you only need so many of these kinds of clients, and you'll be busy all year because they'll return over and over, and they'll also blast your name everywhere and pass out cards for you, and they'll become like your very own street team, and they'll multiply quickly, and they'll feel appreciated, so they're gonna keep multiplying and keep finding more people to do that, and it's just gonna grow more and more. And you could do that anywhere. You could pick up and leave. That's what's cool about being a tattoo artist, is that you can just start again anywhere, and within a year or two of just being good to people, treating them right, and giving them the best of what you can give them, you'd be surprised how quickly you can build up a clientele that will keep you make you doctor money and shit, you know, if that's what you want to make. Or you could live a humble life and you could do less stuff, just highly specialized. You know, you could do anything you want really in this industry. You could choose the kind of life that you want to live. It's just like some people like to stay busy, and some people do, you know, do things to where they're gonna be constantly working harder. But in reality, like I said, if you're working with 100 clients, you have 265 days off every year, versus, you know, like working like I would never do anything else again. This is, you know, that's the goal basically. Like one day I'll get to that point too. There's a lot of guys doing that, is what I'm saying. Like I've met a lot of tattoo artists over the years that easily do that or more, and you know, if they decide to, and then travel the world and don't even have a shop. You don't even need a private studio really to do this, I guess. If I think about it, like my other like thing that I think about sometimes is possibly just like if I had other artists working here, keeping these doors open and just traveling, just going convention to convention, renting a booth, building a clientele up in all major cities across the United States, and just going to circuit travel all year long. I know people that have done that and just done like 12 or 13 a year and not worked at a shop, and that works great too, you know, like man, it's just cool to be a tattoo artist. Really grateful, really. I put like almost 9 years into this, and just getting to this point where I get more freedom. So I'm just trying to kind of like not only give back the information I've learned, kind of, because to me this all sounds like duh, you know, but at the same time, I remember not knowing a lot of this kind of stuff, and maybe it could, you know, kind of like shave some time off for anyone else that's kind of like in that boat of where I once was, I guess. Man, so yeah, so you know, I keep talking about how it's like it's not really about keeping, or it's not about like getting all kinds of new clients all the time. That's what a lot of people are always focusing on, getting this massive following. But if you just focus on the following you have, you probably already have plenty of people to work with, and you'd be surprised. If you just listen more and speak less, and just ask questions and listen to these people, communication is really vital to serving these clients and giving them the best results. You just gotta tell them what you require after listening. Don't alter your standards. So like, people think communication means like you tell me what you want and I give exactly what you want to you, but really it's like, hey, this is what you want. You have to clearly communicate that there's going to be some transcribing done, that you're going to take their idea and put it through your system, your thoughts, your brain. You're going to wash all their idea and turn it into your creative, one-of-a-kind piece, that only you could have created, because your style is yours, not theirs. So you took their subject matter, their meaning, their purpose, and you made something that only you could have made. And if you explain and communicate that way to people, then they're more likely to give you the kind of freedom to be able to do that kind of art. And like, you have less problems along the way too, with like people asking for a design and stuff like that, because you're not just going to give away those kind of designs. So obviously you explain that kind of stuff too, though. Like, tell them that you're not going to get a design till the day of the tattoo. Tell them if they cancel that their deposit is going to be yours. Tell them all this stuff, because that's really going to be a big thing that's going to avoid getting you any bad reviews, which is like a huge shit stain for you. Like, you can get rid of bad reviews by like getting a bunch of good reviews, but like, it'll still be there, you know what I mean, like, no matter what. So, but like, and it sucks because like, for me, for instance, like, I don't even have any bad reviews. I only have like 2 people that left me bad reviews, and neither of them I've ever even met or talked to. Who knows why they even left them, like, I try to see, but they don't even respond. People could just leave you one for no reason too, so there's nothing you could do about those people, right? So all you gotta do is focus on getting the people that get tattooed by you to leave just like an honest little review about their experience and stuff, and you can't do anything about the idiots out there or whatever, but anything you can do to kind of like avoid those misunderstandings in the end by like explaining everything up front is gonna be really, really good for your whole career too. Just get really good and at doing that in the beginning, and you're gonna save yourself a lot of time, money, and headaches in the future, because reviews really matter more than anything. To me, at least, it's like a public word of mouth. Like, you can get so much word of mouth from some one person walking around, just being like, going to work, going to church, doing whatever, and showing off the tattoo, and people ask and they hand out your card. You gave them a stack of cards to hand out, and they're handing them out for you, but how many people can that person really reach, that one person that sees everything in person? If you put that picture online in multiple sources, and thousands or hundreds of people, even dozens of people, that's more than what was being seen. So it's always worth it to put your stuff out there, especially on like Google business pages. You want to constantly be posting on that like at least a couple times a month, because that actually helps your shop kind of like boost up in the rankings too. Like, if you're an active user of your Google business page and other people aren't around you, then and you're putting pictures all the time up and stuff, it's going to show your stuff first, because you're an active user of their platform. So that's something to think about. If you're not posting pictures on there regularly, you're missing out on business. So basically, you really want to focus on those reviews and try to control that narrative as much as possible. I'm not telling you to do anything dishonest, but like, if you can get people to leave reviews, like, one thing I do is offer like a giveaway every year. In Thanksgiving, I do a drawing where I give away to one reviewer. So a lot of people will review the shop because they get a chance to win a $500 tattoo every year if they just, all they did was leave a review. So that's worth it to me. You know, if I'm getting dozens of reviews a month off of that, um, that one chance for one person to win, you know, I'm always giving back to my clients like that. So those are good ways to get people to do what you want them to do, is to offer something in return, right? So, um, yeah, basically, um, some other notes I have here is just like something we already talked about, but there's like, we're having conversations in one of the seminars I took with, you know, you end up in a group with like a bunch of other tattoo artists and stuff, and some of them were talking about like like how it used to, every shop was 50% for a long time, and then um, he got an offer, you know, to pay like $800 a month, and he was like, 800? You mean like 800 a week, or? And so you know, like, of course he took that chance, and then you know, just started killing it. And I think that that's like just that was like a guy that is a little older, you know, and he's maybe one of the first people to be at a shop like that, and then that's all he's done ever since then. And his shop is the same way now. 5 artists, and they all just pay booth rent and stuff, you know. And I think that every shop like that I've talked to, like people that own those shops or work at those shops, like the artists are way happier, and they're doing way better work. So really, that's what this episode, the main idea was supposed to be about. It's just about like, if the artist is happier, then the client is happier too, you know. So um, you could be, you know, in some kind of oppressive shop that's kind of like holding you back, um, and a booth rent could be a little bit scary, you know. Opening your own private studio could be a little scary, but a lot of times I think that's going to be the answer in the future. A lot of people are going to be doing that, and you may or may not be ready for that, you know. That's going to be up to you. And there's a lot of paperwork and health department shit to go through when you do that kind of stuff by yourself. But, you know, if you could just rent a booth from somebody, and it's just like, it's a different kind of lifestyle. Like, you're way more free. Like, definitely having a 3-year-old, it's been a really good blessing to be able to kind of make my own hours and work whenever I want to work, and go home when I want to go home. So man, I've been in a lot of different scenarios like that. I've been in shops that are more private studios, but still charge percentage even though they're a private studio, and that's the worst situation you could probably be in. I was paying 30% and thought I was in heaven. You know, I was doing great, but I was having to pull in all my own clientele, supplying all my own stuff, advertising my own self, like getting everyone I knew off of Facebook to come get tattooed. So I wasn't getting anything from the shop. I was only paying 30% of whatever I was making, so that the guy that had the lease in his, and it's not even like he's a building owner, he just has the lease in his name and did some of the health department paperwork, you know, and he deserves to get 30% of your money, or 50%, for what, you know? That's a really bad situation to be in, and you might as well, I don't know, you gotta find a way out, basically, is my idea on that. And that's what I did. That's what a lot of guys did. And a lot of guys teamed up together too, you know, to like start their own places by like putting ends together on a roof over their head. And maybe that's the best way to go. I know that it definitely is going that way, regardless of whether it's best or not. But I think that a lot of people are clinging on to the past because they own, you know, like a bunch of those old kind of shops, and they're scared of a big change like that, because the power basically would be in the hands of the individual artist rather than a company. And like I said earlier, though, don't get me wrong, there are companies out there that invest back into their shops. They take 50% from you, but then you make, 4 times as much as you would by yourself or something, because they're putting all that money into ad revenue and keeping you booked out 6 months to a year. But myself personally, I don't like the idea of working in a shop where I have to be booked out that far and don't have as much choice or freedom in my day to day. And I book out about 2 months, and I try to keep 3 to 4 big tattoos a week. And in order to do that, I just try to keep as many consultations as I can going every week. Some at minimum, I like to book 2 to 3 in a week so that I stay a week out for every week I work. But sometimes it doesn't happen, and sometimes you get 10 or 15 people you book in a day, and it's crazy. But instead of booking all those people for 1 week or something, I spread it out, and then that way I can stay booked out a couple months. And I've been able to do that for like 2 years straight now. I haven't had any times where there was a slow time of the year. And I think that pretty much any artist could probably do that with the right kind of motivation, basically. A lot of internet time, a lot of time sitting there posting content, just talking about your ideas. Can't be afraid of what people think. And it really can take a go-getter. It's like extreme talent. In the end, like, talent never really I don't know, like, talent can go unnoticed is what I guess I was trying to say here. It's just written confusingly. Talent can go unnoticed if it's not being put out there, basically, because there's like that old saying, like Sailor Jerry always said, like, good work speaks for itself. But maybe back then, you could open a phone book and look up tattoos, and there would be 2 tattoo shops, in the whole San Francisco area, where there's probably 300 or something now. I went to Columbus, there was 200 tattoo shops there, so it wouldn't be surprising to me. Your work doesn't speak for itself anymore. You have to put it out there in the right way. You have to tell the story behind it. You have to connect emotion. You have to do a lot more than just the tattoo, because that one person is going to show 10 people. They're going to maybe 100 people, and 10 of those people are going to show interest in the tattoo, and one of them will end up getting one, maybe. But if you put it on the internet, thousands of people have seen that tattoo, and it's a lot different, and if you put money into that ad, then tens of thousands of people maybe seen that, and so that 1 or 2 people that would have shown interest turns into a few dozen, and then it multiplies and increases itself. So you have to just think about it as a numbers game, I guess, in the long run. And if you could do that, then you're going to do yourself a huge justice. And yeah, that's basically all I have to say today. I think I got in like almost an hour right now, so I'm sorry if my voice is shitty. I'm a little bit sick, and it's that time of year, so it's almost Christmas, and I'm excited to give my son presents. He's 3 years old. So that's still fun years, and we got some different things coming up soon. The Detroit Tattoo Convention's coming up in the end of February, and then March we're gonna go back home for a little while to the tattoo convention in Modesto, California. And yeah, so I'm always trying to like line up those kind of trips and stuff. I'm trying to do as many as I can, because I try to do seminars while I'm at those and learn from people, and that always helps me grow. And if you get a chance to go do that kind of stuff, you should. And if you're going to any of these tattoo conventions, you should let me know, and maybe we can link up, and even maybe do an episode together or something like that. I'm always looking for like people that would be willing to do this, but it seems like a lot of people have a podcast and stuff, so it's not like that enticing to like, hey, let me go do this guy's podcast or whatever. But sometimes you get people that would be interested in maybe having like a fun little conversation. I haven't got anyone to do it yet, so hopefully soon we can get more people involved, and some of my friends, that have some cool insight into tattoo history, or like just whatever. stuff like that. But for now, it's just me, and hopefully that's good enough for y'all. But until next time, it's me signing off, and you guys have a wonderful week.